Hey yo, am I the only one that remembers Dopey? This dude used to be on so many t-shirts and folders and notebooks and stickers. I actually remember him more than I remember Snow White. Ironically, I feel like he had more fans back in the day than anyone or anything else in the entire Snow White film. Bro was a 90s icon. Yeah, man, Dopey was a real one. Too bad he ain't gonna be in this film. So the upcoming Snow White film is being delayed, and there's rumors of it being canceled altogether, and I'm not surprised at all about this. It's all in response to the backlash that's been received by Rachel Zegler from this clip right here.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this film.
Okay, first problem. The actress who's going to play Snow White hasn't watched Snow White in years? Isn't that gonna kind of affect your idea of what the character's even like?
Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like.
Do you even like Snow White? And if you don't, why play her?
Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again.
That'd be like Robert Pattinson when he initially got casted as Batman, going to a live interview and saying, you know, I only watched Batman one time and I never picked it up again. But I'm totally playing Bruce Wayne this fall.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
And not just to play the Caped Crusader, but to play a deconstructed version of Batman. One whose parents never died, and him and the Joker are best friends.
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be.
Late father? Who? What late father? What? I ain't never heard of her daddy. Am I missing something here? Do y'all got the scoop on Daddy White? Unless...
I am the one who knocks.
No, that'd be crazy.
If she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
The premise of the film is making absolutely no sense for what Snow White actually is. The 7 dwarves are now 7 magical companions. She's going to become a fearless leader like her late father always told her that she could be. Instead of just, I don't know, singing happy songs and baking pies and frolicking with animals in the forest. And I'm not saying that because I don't think that women can be leaders. I'm saying that because in the original film, that's what she did, and she was happy. Hell, if I was singing happy songs and baking pies and frolicking in the forest with animals, I would be happy too. That just sounds like a good time. This new movie doesn't even sound happy in the least bit. Can a girl be happy? This new film just sounds stressful. If you wanted to make a story like this, you absolutely could, but call it something else, because this isn't Snow White. However, I think the main reason why they keep on changing these stories so much but keeping the title is so they can garner an automatic audience just based on the name. The name recognition is going to have some people automatically going to see the film without doing any research on it because they're expecting to see Snow White.
She's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince.
Okay, this talking point is really crazy to me because the entire story is not centered around her being saved by the prince. The overemphasis of the prince being important at all is actually kind of crazy because realistically, do you know what the prince's name is? Like, anybody? Does anybody actually know what the prince's name is? I don't know bro's name. If I'm keeping it 100, I had to look it up. I had to Google it, and I got 3 different results. Henrik, Florian, and Ferdinand. And I still don't know which one is the real one. He's so irrelevant, the man got 3 names. But you know whose name I do know? Snow White. But in all seriousness, he only has 2 major appearances in the entire film. Why are we always projecting that these women are damsels in distress who are just being saved by a random brute?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
But stalker? That is such a bold claim. Why are we making so many films these days that are giving such negative and odd personalities and identities to men? Why are we pitting each other against each other so much? You can't just have a nice story? Even if you didn't want to make her fall in love and you didn't want to go the romantic route, they could be friends. They could be friends. They could be platonic. They could be comrades. They could be buddies. They could be working together. But no, he's got to be some weird, slimy, creepy dude. What is that about? Why does there have to be some weird guy? The original antagonist is an extremely vain queen who is jealous of Snow White's beauty. Maybe they'll get into that, maybe they won't. But you already know, man. The prince that's gonna risk his life, the one who's gonna try to slay the dragon for her, he's a stalker. He couldn't possibly be truly in love with her. He couldn't possibly just be a good dude. We just can't have nice things. It seems like in so much modern media, they have to have this narrative of woman good, man bad. It couldn't simply just be good people versus bad people. One gender has to be evil. And on that note, I'm so sick of this narrative that has been in media for the past few decades of men being portrayed as these silly, bumbling buffoons, these complete idiots, these nincompoops who can only have their idiocy quelled by some intelligent woman who comes to save the day. The smart woman in charge is going to fix all the problems that were caused by the dumb man. And if they're not being portrayed as a complete idiot, the other narrative is that every guy is some raging sexist and misogynist. Someone with this natural drive and inclination to degrade women and put women down, and at the very worst, hurt women. And it's such a negative message to push out to the masses. It's causing so many innocent men who actually really love and care for and respect and defend women to feel responsible for the actions of people that they do not relate to. Trying to force them to collectively take the shame and guilt that should be associated with some scumbag off the street. There are bad men out there and there are bad women out there, but we shouldn't be making anybody pay for the collective sins of their gender. Considering men watch these movies just as much as women do, you're actually alienating half of your audience by calling them idiots and predators. Why does one side always have to put the other down? Why is it that in order for one to be great, it has to be at the expense of the other one being belittled? Can we just portray great women and great men in film and media? Does it have to be one or the other? This new thing that they're doing in so many shows and movies right now, where they go out of their way to make the strong female lead completely embarrass and dominate some guy, it's pretty exhausting. They find a way to characterize some random guy as the most stereotypical cat-calling, woman-hating misogynist, and then they make that strong female lead embarrass him. He's just like a speed bump for her to just flatten.
And you dress like a whore!
This is not your truth. The lasso compels you. Now tell us your truth.
I cross-dress in a Wonder Woman outfit. It makes me feel powerful.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
You with anyone?
I'm waiting for my ride.
What's your name?
I think my boyfriend's just...
Oh, come on. Where you going? Let us keep you
Hey,
company.
we're just being friendly.
Yeah, where you going? So what, you too good to talk to us?
And I'm just as tired of seeing this in media as the evil gold digger who's just trying to take some guy's money. Because at least in most macho man action films, when that main character is mowing down a bunch of bowling pins known as henchmen, he's not saying a bunch of snarky comments about their gender. Instead, he's saying cheesy action punchlines that are meant to be funny. And they end up being so corny half the time that they somehow do make you laugh.
So who are you, man? Shit!
I'm the party pooper.
You're a disease, and I'm the cure.
Let off some steam, Bennett.
But aside from all that, I feel like you can easily write a scene where a woman is physically fighting with a man, and it doesn't result in all this, like, vitriol. It can literally just be a fight scene. An ass whooping is an ass whooping. The Android 18 and Vegeta fight is a great example of this. She whooped his ass, and that's all there was to it. There were no snarky remarks about his gender. There was no commentary about her being a woman and how it's better than being a man. It was just a good old-fashioned ass whooping. In fact, the back and forth that they did have was more about him being a flesh and blood creature and her being a machine, which is so much better than all this gender war talk. What about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
听闻有高人在此。
什么铁臂神拳？
Have you ever seen the film Chocolate? The fighting is about fighting, not emasculation. And besides, if you reversed it and you had one of these giant action dudes beating up a bunch of women and then making comments about their gender while he's doing it, it would just look wrong. So why do we accept it the other way around? What is with this power fantasy about embarrassing men? Better to embarrass men than fall in love with them, right?
She's not going to be dreaming about true love. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But it's...
And it's stupid to act like that's what the story's even all about. She spends more time with the seven dwarves than she does with the prince. Because the story does not revolve around love and her being saved by the prince. The story revolves around her not getting got by the evil queen. And even if she did want to fall in love, especially with somebody who supposedly loved her back, especially with somebody who's risking their lives to save her, what's wrong with that? What's so wrong with falling in love? Isn't the lack of love the reason why so many people are fucked up in the first place right now? And besides, damn near none of the princes actually have much relevancy in any of these films. Each film has a princess or a young girl who is going on her own adventure and falls in love along the way. Cinderella was not on a quest to find a rich man who's going to save her. Cinderella wanted to go to the ball. She wanted to have fun. She wanted to have a good time. And she just happened to fall in love in the process. Ariel's main objective was not to give away her voice so she could get a man. Her main objective was to get some legs and get up on land. She wanted to get up to the surface and see how people lived up there. She was curious. She was an explorer. She wanted to try something new in her life. Just because they fell in love with somebody along the way of their own story, is that so bad? Isn't that most people's love story? They went to a party and they just happened to find somebody while they were there and they fell in love. They went to a new city, they wanted to explore and find themselves, and they found somebody along the way and they fell in love. There is nothing wrong with love and romance, especially in a fantasy film. Should this be the only way that women are portrayed in media? Absolutely not. There should be a variety. There should be so many different kinds of walks of life that different women are choosing to take. But that doesn't make it wrong for there to be romance in a film that most women are going to watch. The same way that there's nothing wrong with there being a bunch of over-the-top action in a film that most guys are going to watch. Should every male character be a muscle-bound modern caveman who is dominating with all of his might? No. But when it's done well, it is done well. And damn do we love it. Listen, I don't love all romance movies, but a good romance movie is amazing. When it's done well, it's done well. Love and romance is such a classic theme. It is the prevalent, dominating force that most people are living their lives working towards and aiming towards throughout most of history. Where are we in a world where having characters fall in love in a story is innately regressive? Do they want everyone to be single and lonely? Well, actually, the answer to that is no, because in most modern action films, they will insert a romantic subplot even if it doesn't need it. Even if it's completely unnecessary to the story, and even if they gotta make up a romantic love interest, they'll put it in there. But we're taking away romance from films that are originally romantic in nature. What's going on out here, man? I am absolutely exhausted with the race swap arguments that are inherently a part of modern remakes. And the reason why is because most of the time, nobody speaks about it with any sort of nuance. You're either completely for it or you're completely against it, and there's no in between. It's either you see a race swap happen and you immediately categorize this film or TV show as woke, or you see a race swap happen and you're like, hooray, representation. When in reality, it's such a nuanced topic that you would have to go through every single individual character to find out whether or not the race swap is actually justified. And it really sucks because some people are just straight up racist, and they go out of their way to show it to you when it comes to these fictional characters, when it really just depends on the character themselves. Sometimes it doesn't actually add anything to the story. Sometimes there's way too much focus on the representation part and not enough focus on the good writing and character development part. And I really hate that because you ruin a perfectly good opportunity to do something unique with a character, but it's usually so drenched in identity politics that it lacks in characterization. Just because you've made a character with a certain background or identity to represent does not automatically make them a good character. They're just representing something. We just need to start creating brand new stories. We need to start brand new stories that represent whatever groups of people that you would like to see represented. Miles Morales works so well in the Spider-Verse movies because he is not Peter Parker. He's Miles Morales. He's his own character with his own story, with his own background, with his own personality. He's not Peter Parker randomly made black. No, not that black Peter Parker. Actually, black and Latino, because let's not forget he's half Puerto Rican. I just mean in general, they made a separate brand new story that's centered around a completely new person. A new character with his own struggles, and those struggles are not always automatically attached to his culture and heritage, while simultaneously exploring the subtle nuances of his culture and heritage and how it comes into play with who he is as a person. And you know what makes these films so great? Great writing. The representation is just icing on the cake. Miles Morales is a good character because he's a good character. It's not because he's black and Latino. And as much as I adore this film series and I recognize how much it has to offer, eventually one day down the line, I would love to see a completely original from scratch, brand spanking new black superhero. Because I would be scared to see what they would actually do with a Static Shock movie. And not just black, but all sorts of superheroes from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds, but with their own story. Someone who's brand new and not just an adaptation of someone who already existed, but also a well-written, fully fleshed out character of color, and not just a superpower diversity hire. But in response to all the commotion and controversy in regards to race swapping and identity politics in media, I feel like you would just get a better result if you came up with a fresh, brand new idea, rather than making an adaptation of something that was already successful in its own right. I think it's just lazy and a bad idea to reboot a series that was already successful and find a well-known character that is easily recognizable and change their race for representation purposes. Because you're begging for a portion of people to have beef with the new character design. Sometimes it's racially motivated, sometimes it's not. But at the same time, when we're talking about a fictional character in a fictional universe where the color of their skin would probably matter a whole lot less than the powers that they possess, does it really matter? Who gives a shit what color they are? In these fantasy worlds, their skin color really should make no difference. If you can accept superpowers and elves and aliens and magic portals and dragons, you can accept some damn melanin. At the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, but I do see both sides of the argument. Now, with all that being said, I have to say in this particular case, this does not make sense. Snow White's entire shtick is her skin being white as snow. It's in her name. It'd be like going to see a Goldilocks in the Three Bears movie, and Goldilocks has jet black hair. And I don't think that calling this out makes you some sort of bigot. You're just calling out an inconsistency. It's not at all that I would have a problem with a Latina princess. I would love to see a Latina princess. It's that I would love to see a Latina princess in her own story that highlights the beauty and the nuances of her culture and her heritage, like the Blue Beetle. Now, I don't know all there is to know about the Blue Beetle. I remember seeing him in Young Justice, and I thought he was a really cool character. Kinda like Miles in the Spider-Verse films, Jaime Reyes is not the first Blue Beetle. He's actually the third character to take up the mantle of the Blue Beetle. He's not being race swapped. He's his own character. His own character with his own Mexican-American identity. I still haven't watched the film yet. The previews look pretty cool, but I've heard mixed reviews.
When we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader. And the reality is, Snow White has to learn a lot of lessons about coming into her own power before she can come into power over a kingdom.
So they changed the concept of the question, who's the fairest of them all, to not be about either the complexion of her skin or fairness as in beauty, but fairness as in justice. Okay, fair enough. If you want to change the concept, that's fine. But like, if the queen is already evil, then she really wouldn't be fair. So would it be much competition for someone else to be more fair than her? And more importantly, for naming conventions, why would she be named Snow White? Well, in that case, shouldn't she have a name that matches her a bit more? Shouldn't she be Fair Claire? Just Judy? Judge Judy? But without getting too into it really quickly, I will say it's a bit problematic that in the original folklore, Snow White's beauty is equated to the fairness of her skin. But in all seriousness, I remember growing up seeing tons of diversity represented in media. In most cartoons, there was a variety of characters of differing backgrounds and cultural heritages. And although there was the occasional walking stereotype, most of those characters were not that. And the thing is, as diverse as most of these casts were, they rarely addressed it. They let the characters just be them. And occasionally they'd have like an after school special type of vibe on an episode, but like, most of the time, characters just got a chance to be themselves. But our current culture is so obsessed with race and identity and diversity and representation that we always have to make these characters like proclaim it from the rooftops what they are. I feel like in most modern shows, I know what a character is before I know who they are. Your cultural identity and background absolutely do play a factor in who you are. but it should not be your entire personality.
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
So about the fearless leader thing, I have to say I'm pretty tired of this new wave of writing female characters that are supposed to be really strong but lack emotion. They keep on trying to push this rough around the edges, non-relatable, tough as nails woman to be the new face of women in all of media. And I have to say I'm not a fan. And it's not because I don't like seeing a strong female lead. I love seeing a strong female lead. I have a problem with girl bosses. And I don't even mean the concept of a girl being a boss. I mean the term that's being thrown around right now to define these sorts of characters. They're just writing the characters wrong. They come off as so one-dimensional and flat because they try so hard to not let them show any emotions at all that they lack humanity.
I need you to fix his suit.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
You're a female Bruce Wayne.
Awesome. Hilarious. Handsome.
Stop making this character. Stop making a strong female lead whose only defining characteristics is that she's strong and female. There needs to be more to her than just me stronger than man dialogue.
I'm not about to let a man take credit for a woman's work.
And she shouldn't be automatically better and stronger than everybody without actually training. She has to have a defining character arc. Again, focus on making a good character. A well thought out, well written character that happens to be female. Because it's no better than the hollow action film characters of the 1980s. You're just flipping the gender. The movies were fun and original and interesting in the beginning, but after a while they became cheesy. Everybody just looked at the movie and was just like, I know exactly what's gonna happen. I understand the entire film already without watching it. Because once you saw one, you basically saw them all. And at some point the directors and the writers realized there's gotta be more to the character than just the muscles and the guns and the action. There has to be more to just this human tank who's going around beating people up. Who is he as a person? What is his actual character? What can you define him as other than just a hulk of muscle? Does he have thoughts? Does he have emotions? Does he have feelings? Does he have any sort of anything that makes him more than just a weapon? Which translates to the new girl boss characters. I hate this new narrative that in order for a woman to be strong, that she has to be unlikable, she's got to be blunt when she speaks to people, and she accepts help from no one. And one of the worst attributes of all, she's constantly competing and comparing herself with men when it comes to power and strength. If she's strong, she's strong. She won't have to proclaim it from the heavens. We'll figure that out as the story goes on. And she doesn't have to be dismissive or elitist in order for her to be strong. There are so many stories in media where the badass leading lady is actually a likable character. Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley easily come to mind. Both of them were amazing, get shit done women who were placed in positions of leadership, but still showed human emotion. And while they demonstrated so much courage through these positions of leadership, they also had moments in which they were scared. Moments where they were confused, moments where they didn't know what to do. You put yourself in their shoes and you understand everything that they're feeling. Spoiler alert, Sarah Connor both falls in love and becomes a mother, and I don't see her as any less of a badass because of that. The movie Prey is underrated as hell. If you have not watched it, please go watch it. This is an amazing film with a strong female lead that is characterized in such a wonderful way that it's just chef's kiss. I enjoyed every second of that film. Not to mention, going back to the whole representation conversation, this is literally representing Native Americans. A Native American sci-fi film with a strong female lead. It is truly a gem. Please go watch and support it. Speaking of purely badass female characters, one of my favorites of all time is Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender. She is the epitome of strong and badass, and she's a blind little girl. A blind little girl who will duke it out with the best of them and actually win. And it's because of her intelligence, because of her creativity, her technique, her ingenuity. She's a genius. Her brute strength combined with her bold and brash personality make a formidable foe. But even with her seemingly immovable resilience, her endurance, her stubbornness, her impenetrable confidence, there are moments in the series where we still get a chance to see that she is a little girl with emotions. She too has vulnerabilities, and this not only makes her more relatable, but it makes her more likable. Another two of my all-time favorites come from the same series, Olivier Armstrong and Izumi Curtis from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. They are two sides of the same coin, and I can make an entire video about them. Don't get me started on C2 and Colin. What about Jolene Cujo? How about Sango from Inuyasha? I'm sorry, but as much fan service and bad female character writing there can be in anime, when it is done well, it is done well. If you're interested in me creating a think piece about writing strong female characters, Type in badass ladies in the comments. But I also hate that they're pushing this narrative that to be traditionally feminine is actually a bad thing. If you're a strong independent leader, I think that that's a great thing. But there are a lot of women who don't identify with that.
I know that you've rewritten it, and it's going to be about a Snow White that don't need no man to save her. Did you ever stop to think that in this day and age, that is exactly what we want? There are women in this world who want that fairy tale because all they've known is the exact opposite. And there are women who don't want to hear about rescuing themselves because they do it all the time.
I think there's a lot of women who don't feel that way, and you kind of put them off by telling them to shed what's natural to them in favor of being more hardcore. Again, nothing wrong with being more hardcore if that's who you are, but don't try to push someone else to be something that they're not. And I think a lot of these modern remakes are doing just that. Now you're alienating the other half of your audience. An audience who are partial to romance films and dainty Disney princesses. And you're telling them that there's going to be no prince and no true love and no romance at all in the film. Instead, they're getting a movie about a rough and tumble Snow White who's trying to be a leader. It's like making a new Dragon Ball film and having all the characters sit down and talk about their feelings instead of pummeling each other to death. Now, is there a problem with them having a conversation, having a heart-to-heart and talking out their feelings? No. But that's not Dragon Ball, and this isn't Snow White. When you change the narrative from the source material this much, you change the story itself. And if the fans are expecting Disney princesses, give them a Disney princess. There's nothing wrong with being soft and delicate and sensitive if that's who you are. Not every woman has to be a leader who is running things in order for her to be worth anything. Although I have my reservations with the film, I feel like they characterized this very well in the Barbie movie. I love the fact that Margot Robbie's Barbie is just regular Barbie. She didn't have to be anything special, she was just her. She was just a girl who loved her cute outfits, she loved pink, she loved her friends, and she loved having a good time. And she was extremely feminine, and nobody thinks less of her for that. She wasn't a fragile mess, but she was a person with emotions and vulnerabilities. She was extremely expressive while still being very intelligent. But at the end of the day, she was just regular Barbie. There were other Barbies in the Barbie universe who had way more responsibility and way more leadership than she did. She was fine just being regular Barbie. The other Barbies weren't trying to push her to be like them, and she wasn't trying to push the other Barbies to be like her. And the movie effectively showcased that it's totally okay whichever path you want to choose. But it's almost as if all the girl boss media tells you that feminine behavior is actually bad, and it's better to act masculine. Unless you're a man. Then you're a stalker. But I'd also like to address another issue that I have with a different version of a strong female lead. I have a bone to pick with the strong female lead that's on the entire other side of the spectrum. The strong female lead who is completely over-sexualized. I get it, there's nothing wrong with making a character attractive. Don't get it twisted out there, they can be a good character and be sexy too. But when there's more sex appeal than actual character, that's when I have a problem. It just becomes annoying. All of this media, they do it for viewership and sales, but they sacrifice the integrity of the work. It comes at the expense of what you could possibly do with a strong female lead in media. And hey, it doesn't just happen with women, it happens with male characters too, but not nearly at the same rate or the same level. How great a character is should not revolve around how much you want to make out with them. There's already an abundance of resources out there for you to get your simping fix through. Can we please just leave the characters alone? With that being said, Chun-Li, if you exist out there somewhere, please call me. But seriously, my favorite strong women in media are not over-sexualized. They're just well-written characters. I am so sick of every single movie and TV show trying to be this virtue-signaling teacher of society. It's almost like everything that you watch now is trying to indoctrinate you into a way of thinking. It's all coming off so preachy, and it's always pushing some sort of agenda or narrative with zero subtlety. There have always been deeper messages in media if you looked hard enough, but that's kind of the point. Looking hard enough. The main goal should be making an entertaining piece of media, not to win the Nobel Prize. I feel like everything is trying so hard to slap you in the face with a message that it's forgiving to give you a good time along the way. I'm tired of remakes altogether. The concept of doing a reboot at this point is so played out, it's not even funny. We've done so many, and most of them flop. Most of them are not good. Most of them cause so much controversy. Just leave the classics as they are. Some things are not meant to be revived. It's 2023, and instead of these directors and studios and writers coming up with fresh ideas, everything is either being remade, rebooted, or continued. Beavis and Butthead is coming back. King of the Hill is coming back. Futurama came back again. Clone High came back. As much as I adore the original cast of Digimon, I think I could go the rest of my life without another series about them. They already have way too many versions as is. Pokemon is never going to end, and Ash is going to be a 10-year-old forever. They're making another Fooly Cooly after that disgrace of a spinoff. Dragon Ball Super continues to completely destroy all prior world building and power scaling beyond anything that's comprehensible. Nothing makes sense anymore. They're gonna make another live action Avatar: The Last Airbender. When will they learn? There's a Girl Meets World now, How I Met Your Father. iCarly got rebooted. They're making a Good Burger too. Who asked for any of this? Is it just me, or is anyone else immediately skeptical when a movie franchise or a series returns from the grave? Because even though occasionally something can be rebooted a million times and still be somewhat good, I think a majority of things are not. A majority of things get their legacy tarnished and destroyed, and you run the risk of that every single time that you try to bring something back. And nothing ruins a reputation quicker than a haphazard remake or a live action adaptation that no one asked for. Aside from that, it's just sheer laziness. You're trying to bring new production to an old series in order to co-opt the old fans. And you're hoping that once you adopt this old fan base, that they're just gonna roll with it. All of these original series and movies were just that, original. They were new concepts developed out of creativity, and they all possessed this unique flair, this breath of fresh air effect. And the je ne sais quoi that they exuded made them successful, memorable time capsules from whatever era that they were created in. The literal energy, mindset, and perspective of the time period that they were created in set the tone for how these things would be written. To try and recreate that same spark 5 years, 10 years, 25 years later in the post-postmodern era, the meta-modern era, it's just inherently a bad idea. Life is so different now. Society and the way that we see things are completely different now. Which means when you rewrite a story now, you have to morph it through a modern lens, which usually distorts the story and turns it into a hodgepodge of 10% the old story, 40% trying to push some sort of narrative, and 50% trying to figure out how to make this into a marketable franchise that will produce tons and tons of merchandise. Don't get me wrong, back in the day, merchandising was a huge part of the push behind most of these creative series. However, in the process of trying to sell merchandise, they were also crafting new, fresh developments as well. These days, you could take any franchise, doesn't matter how popular or how obscure, and put it on any sort of merchandise. T-shirts, mugs, stickers, enamel pins, car accessories, you name it. If you could put a franchise name on there, there's a fan out there who will buy it. And because we're so obsessed with identity and expressing ourselves about it, the shows and media that we like is an extension of that. And therefore, part of that identity can be expressed by purchasing merchandise of your favorite franchise. But also, I have to take a second to recognize the legacy of the original Disney film that they're trying to change so much. This was Disney's first major animated film. An amazing accomplishment for not just Walt Disney and his entire team, but animation as a medium altogether. At the time it was produced, this was a staple in all of animated media. Disney as a franchise would not be where it is today without the success of this film. And yet the main actress who is supposed to play this iconic character is talking about it with no decorum and no care. And considering Disney's streak of failure with these live action adaptations, should she really be talking? Because let's keep it a buck, there's absolutely no way that this remake is going to have half the relevancy of the original film in years to come. There's absolutely no way that any of these remakes will continue to stay culturally relevant and stand the test of time. The originals are amazing creative works of art that have inspired generations of people at a time, giving them fond memories of yesteryear, looking back into the past when things were so much more simple and so much better for them. If things are already good, why can't we just leave them as they are? And lastly, aside from the movie piece altogether, I don't like how Rachel Zegler is acting from a PR standpoint.
If I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
As a well-paid actress who is getting the privilege to be a lead in a remake of an iconic film, even if they're gonna change everything, should you really be downing the original? The trashing of the very source material that your employer has created. It makes no sense to be so smug about the namesake film that you're getting all this hype from. Say what you want about Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid movie, but at least she didn't trash talk the original and talk down on it when she was interviewed.
Jodie Benson played Ariel in the original. She has a cameo in this film as well. What was it like to meet her on set?
Oh my gosh, it was a dream to meet Jodie Benson because honestly, she has been the soundtrack of a lot of our childhoods and our lives, and the work that she did as the original Ariel was just so special. So to have her blessing and her stamp of approval was so beautiful and validating, and I'm just honored to meet her because she's a legend.
At every press release, all she did was big up the film and talk about how honored she is to get a chance to play a Disney princess, let alone going the extra mile to actually dress within the theme of the film. I think a lot of people just don't like how Rachel is coming off as pretentious and insensitive, especially towards all those other people who are not getting paid nearly as much as her who are out there striking. She's out there marching with them, and then when you put the camera on her, she makes it all about her.
I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Like, dude, that's not how that works, and you're getting paid more than a lot of other people in the industry. Overall, it's just bad press. But anyway, what do you guys think? Are you tired of modern remakes? What do you think about the girl boss trope? Who are some of your favorite strong female leads? What are your opinions on race swapping in media? Are you interested in me creating that think piece? Don't forget to comment badass ladies down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe. But as always, you already know that I gotta tell you that if you've reached this point in the video, that I truly, absolutely appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, because realistically, you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Much love. It's your boy Just Judah. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.